Hey guys, all right, I want to pick on someone that I have a ton of respect for. I've learned a lot from, but I think he's got a bad take here. So Naval Ravikant, he is a brilliant investor, but he says this, quote, life is a single player game. You're born alone. You're going to die alone. Now this sounds really wise, but there is something inside of this that I think is extremely dangerous that we need to really wrestle through. So in this short talk, I want to explain why I believe what Naval is saying is wrong, why I believe we actually are living in a multiplayer game, and why believing that life is a single player game is actually one of the greatest traps that currently our culture is stuck in. So let's dive in. By the way, my name is Jeremy. I'm one of the founders of Family Teams, where we are giving you guys the tools and mindsets to transform your family from a group of individuals into a team on mission. So let's unpack Naval's claim. Life is a single player game. You're born alone. That sounds deep, but it falls apart the moment you think about it, right? Are you born alone? You come to the world through a mother, like all of us did. And that mother needs a father also to bring life into this world. So from the very start, you're woven into relationship, two people at a minimum, but it just starts there. Then those two people give you your first identities as a son or daughter. If you have siblings, brothers and sisters, you might have grandparents, you might be a niece or someone's niece or nephew. So life doesn't drop you into a single player game, a solo video game, like a lone character in a strange world. You're born into a family, right? Into a team. And if you are in a healthy family, you land in the arms of parents who love you. They surround you with other people who love you and will take care of you. So this is the way, I think, our native habitat. So why do so many of us believe that, okay, no, life is a single player game? What happened there? Why is this happening? Why is Naval making this point? So, and I think that, like, obviously one of his reasons for saying that is that there is something singular about every one of our experiences. Our conscious lives are lived as if we're seeing through a single player game. But is that something that we want to embrace and then accentuate? And I think that as you look at a lot of things that Naval says, he wants to lean into that. Even his parenting style is really designed around, how do I accentuate the single player-ness of my kids' lives? Is that what we should be doing? Or are we designed to actually overcome the kind of selfishness or the sort of self-referential way that we oftentimes think? And so this is where we have guys like Naval, but so many people are promoting the idea in the most hyper-individualistic society in human history, according to so many sociologists. This is true about us. We are saying we need more individualism, more freedom, less restraint, less tying to familial relationships. And you guys, this has given birth to the most lonely, anxious generation we've ever seen. Okay, so let me kind of break down a couple of the biggest problems with Naval's saying. First of all, the problem of hyper-individualism, this accentuating this experience that I am mostly a single player in a single player game. So our culture has decided that freedom, right, individual self-expression, that's kind of the way we think about freedom, is the highest value. Okay, now freedom's wonderful. We say the Pledge of Allegiance. It's about to be 4th of July. We're going to have an amazing parade in town, and we're all going to celebrate the fact that people died for our freedom. Freedom is a very important value. But it's so important that you guys understand something. There is no way that freedom is the highest value. Freedom always serves higher values. Values like love, truth, community are way more important than freedom. Freedom is more of like a tool. It's a means to an end. Everyone who founded this country came here not to pursue freedom, but to pursue something else, right? The Puritans, the Pilgrims, they were all pursuing something else. They cared about something else, but they needed freedom to do that. And so they wanted a better lives for their families. They wanted to pursue their faith. And so they cared about freedom. And freedom is a really important thing for the government to value, right? We don't want the government valuing love or as the highest value, as if they could somehow replace our families. And so we want them to stay away from a lot of the highest values because they really can't improve those things, but they often can either corrupt or replace the actual relationships or the actual vehicles through which we're supposed to experience those higher values. But there is one value that the government can really pursue, and that is freedom. And we want them to do that. But what's happened over 200 years is that because this is the only value, this is, or maybe the better way to say, this is the highest value that all of us in this country can all agree is an important thing, it has somehow become the highest value. So it's the highest value that we can agree on, but it's not the highest value. It's the highest value that the government can focus on, but it's not anywhere near the highest value that you as an individual or your family or your community or your faith community should be pursuing. So that is what we need to keep in mind. And so this obsession with freedom, and after all of these politicians, and there have been so many movements that have really tried to gain their popularity through promoting this value of freedom. If there's a problem in a community or somebody's experiencing, and we think the solution to virtually everything is more freedom. We're going to sprinkle a bunch of freedom dust on every one of these problems, and they're going to magically go away. And this does not work. But this has created this obsession with individual self-expression, or what philosopher Carl Trueman calls the rise and triumph of the modern self. This is what we're really dealing with. So what happens when we embrace this as the highest value, when everyone chases their own path? Families fall apart. We stop passing the ball to our teammates. We start playing for ourselves. And so this is the mindset that is fracturing so many families and making it impossible for us to create connections across generations. So that's the first problem that we have, is we want to obsess on the single player game because it provides more freedom, but that is not what we need more of right now. We have enough freedom to pursue so many of the things we want to pursue. We have other values that are getting crushed underneath this obsession with freedom. The second problem is that's really led, this obsession with freedom has led to the collapse of the multi-generational family, right? So the near total collapse of the multi-generational family in the West, it exists in other cultures. So for most of history, families were teams. They stuck together, kids, parents, grandparents. We worked together side by side. We were like crews on a ship, each one with a different role to play. And so if somebody tried to live like a lone wolf, it put the whole family at risk. Young kids and elderly grandparents depend on family to survive. You spend the first third of your life depending on your family in order for you to survive childhood, and then you would often spend the last third of your life because of a disability or because of your age, depending on your family, to be able to survive that portion of life. And so this was the way we lived. This was very much a multiplayer game, and we all had to live that way in order to just survive. But today, we assume life is stable enough. We can go it alone. We tell 18-year-olds, you're on your own. Good luck. Fly the nest. Find yourself. Now, in the past, sending a young person out without family support at 18 was so unthinkable. It was basically a death sentence. You could not do this in most places in history. But today, we have this thing that sociologists call the assumption of stability. We think and we know that if you send kids out at that age, then they're not going to starve to death in a Western culture. And so we think, but that's how you maximize their freedom. We don't want to impose any of our values, any larger story on an 18-year-old. We want them to be maximally free at 18. And so we're not going to support you. And this is creating all kinds of problems for Gen Z. If you're a Gen Z person listening to this, I am so sorry that your parents do not see as part of their responsibilities trying to help you out with getting established in life. This is more normal. There was this tiny period of time in the 40s, 50s, 60s where there was so much wealth coming into our country that it was possible around 18 years old to go out, live on a single income and start a family, get a house. That is gone. And that's not historically normal at all. Most times in history, of course, you needed your family to help you all the way through that transition. But we don't today. We just say, hey, look at all this freedom you have. Look at all this freedom. Go play your single player game. And so when I first got into video games, or I should say the last time I was into video games, there was a transition happening between single player games and these things called arena games. And I thought arena games were amazing. You'd be dropped into a world with like 5 or 6 other people. Everybody would have kind of their superpower, and then you would play against some other team of 5 or 6 people. That is way closer to the kind of game we're all actually playing. We're playing an arena multiplayer game. And so, but imagine if you were dropped into an arena multiplayer game and everyone's coming at you with their superpowers and everyone on your team acts like they're in a single player game. Now, unless you're some kind of Superman that can take on everything by yourself, like Naval, who is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, that he is an unusual person. He's in the top 0.01% of intelligence and now of wealth and everything else, all these privileges, so that he could stand up there and say, hey guys, we're in a single player game. No, that's not how this works. We all need to work together, and we are dropped not into a single player game, but into an arena game. And that's that arena, that team that every person is given when they first come into this world is called the family. And so I know this is not true now for so many people listening to this, but you can build that kind of family team. You can create the kind of arena for your children that would allow them to live life as a team. And that is historically more normal. And I think that is much more realistic. And so one of the advantages of the silver linings of the challenges that we're all facing right now, economic challenges and the reality that things are harder for a lot of people that are just starting today, one of the realities of that is that it is going to force us to grapple with the lie of the single player narrative and cause us to remember that God designed us to live life in and through our family teams. And that's what we do here at Family Teams. If you guys like this message and you want to learn how to transition your family from a single player way of thinking into a multiplayer way of thinking, then that's where we have Family Teams. You can check us out at familyteams.com. But also, if you like videos like this, I would love to interact with you guys in the comments below. Let me know, what is it that is causing people, maybe even in your situation, what are the obstacles of transitioning your family or your mindset from a single player to a multiplayer game? What do you think of this message? Let me know in the comments below. We really need to help each other figure out what is going on and how do we make this transition and how do we help each other think and build families that are multiplayer.